Yes, maybe we can introduce ourselves a little bit more. So, hello and welcome. My name is Annabel. I'm working with DHL now for 13 years, and most of the time in corporate security. So, just setting a little bit the scene, being also responsible for our global security situation center. So, meaning we're monitoring the situation worldwide, and also responsible for crisis management, business continuity management, and travel security. And I'm handing over to Sven.
Thanks, Annabel. Yeah, a warm welcome from my side. Good morning, all. My name is Sven Ludwig in DHL since 24.99 years. My 25 years will be at the weekend. Always be in security, even in my previous life with the competitor. Responsible for the security in our business unit, DHL Global Forwarding. We come to that in a minute. So I'm the program manager for physical security and business continuity management. Our department is a bit broader. We also cover the occupational health and safety and the quality and environment. Thanks to Mr. Funke for his presentation. And I think we have some connection points later on in my presentation or our presentation.
Yeah, so you have the luck today, so you get us both. So from corporate perspective and also from a business unit perspective, which is also, I think, quite unique. Normally you would have just one of us. But we want to come up with some facts and figures because for us it's quite important because we have a quite unique footprint. We are in over 220 countries over the world, and we have 600,000 employees. In Germany, you're more familiar with the post and parcel business. So each and every day you receive your parcels and letters via our business unit, post and parcel. As said before, we also have another 4 business units. We have supply chain, which is dealing with more like warehousing, and the e-commerce with domestic parcel delivery, as well as DHL Express, which is the business unit of our time-definite international sending documents and parcels around the world. And we have our expert of DHL Global Forwarding and Freight, with also quite a unique business operational model.
So it's up to me to explain. So we are working in the second from the left department. So Global Forwarding Freight, some of you may previously knew as DANSAS, many decades back. We move all the big stuff. So air freight, intermodal, rail and sea combined, ocean freight, as we call the sea freight internally. And of course also customs clearance, customs brokerage, some may know Gerlach. And of course we have also the big volumes, the industrial projects, so the energy and oil and gas mining industry, so the big ones, the special transports, that's in our portfolio. And of course also value-added services in some countries, especially in Latin America and Asia Pacific. We do also warehousing, 43,000 people, so it's really a people business logistics. Yeah.
So as you can see, with all the 5 different business units, we also face additional challenges to bring it all together on a corporate level, because they all have different requirements, they all have different businesses, and we have to align it somehow to react as one and also face the new challenges we are having all around the globe. So therefore, coming up to our topic of the organizational resilience, with this growing threat landscape, we have also to adapt to the different challenges and upcoming issues. And therefore we have to ensure greater transparency across the group, to make sure that it works for the bigger business of air freight and ocean freight, but it also works for our parcel units here in Germany, which is quite unique over here. Therefore, we continuously monitor and analyze and assess the global situation and developments. As said before, we have analysts available who look all over the world and figure out who we are affected as a company on group level. So I'm talking about the group level part, and here we are more on the regional and local part. But we have to differentiate between these different levels, because for us as DHL Group, some of these developments does not mean a crisis or a bigger incident, but would mean for the region and also for the business unit, it could be a crisis. So therefore, we have to align quite closely, and we support our divisions with up-to-date analysis, also figuring out how the respective location and sites are affected. And how we are doing this, it is quite a fundamental ecosystem we are dealing with. So we are developed, I think we said something like 5 years ago, our so-called threat radar. So you can see here, there are around 84 threats which are identified for us as DHL Group, and we cluster them on environmental, political, geopolitical. You can see it all over there at the threat radar, and we differentiate between threat events and threat trends, meaning going from the middle to the outside, we are having threat events with really a high impact for us, where we are looking a little bit closer to, and we are also matching it with trends we are seeing globally. And based on this threat radar, we are also building up our DHL intelligence ecosystem. You can see it around. So this would mean we need this as a foundation to really react on what is going on. Security around the world, you see it on the left side, on the top, it's country-specific threat scores. So what would it mean if we operate in a specific country? How many employees would be affected over there? How is the revenue for us there? Is it quite a big region or country for us? And then we also match it with the geopolitical developments, meaning we all know what's currently happening all around the world, but we want to cascade it down to our individual footprint and business operations.
Just a few words on this, because I'm working in a division, so not everything what comes from global we think it's great. In this case, yes, it is. Because for 3 reasons. The first thing is they have done a threat assessment. So for us, it's already a risk assessment because the threat is assessed. So we can use it in a risk assessment. And now talking about quality management, you have to do it anyway. And also in security. So we got already the elephant sliced. That means, of course, we have to translate it into our DGFF. That's the internal abbreviation for our division. And of course, we have to reassess it also somehow, because what might be for the global extent or the scope might be higher or lower, but at least we have already a radar and a compass. And of course, then also you have an aligned risk assessment, because we do have an integrated risk management approach. That means BCM, our business continuity program, as the standard sits under the quality management. It was the first ISO standard from the beginning placed under 9001. So we have to do something. And then, of course, we took that over across the regions, of course, first globally, then regionally, and then in the country. So you have this risk register, that's the fact sheet for that. And of course, we have to work on that. And secondly, you can also sit together with a customer on that and explain it to them again, how we see it. It doesn't mean that this is the world opinion, but that's how we see as DHL Group and as division the threats, and then also mitigate advice to risks. And then, of course, you have somehow a residual risk. That's your remaining risk, and then you have to accept it. or you have to further mitigate it. So that was really a major step forward. And you talk the same language in the group. Everybody in the divisions use different terminologies, but here, same language.
Yeah. Thanks, Sven. So, as said, so this is our baseline or our fundament, so to say, to further process with the threats in our company. And we also have some of these, or we have one threat radar also for cyber threats, which is on the bottom right. So we also adapted the same methodology to look at cyber threats for us as a company. So as said, this is our picture of the world or the threats for us as DHL Group. And then we also take this for potential crisis events, for example. As said before, for group level, the crisis criteria are quite high, I have to say. So if something is happening locally, normally this is not a crisis for DHL Group because we can act in all the other countries. But for the division and also for the region, it could mean something different. And we have crisis indicators implemented so that we can look at different trigger points, how to escalate and how to proceed further.
Yeah. So I just realized I forgot my reading glasses, but I know the slide. The first thing is the very important one, monitoring. That's also why we have a global department with people on the ground. They are the ears, not only in security, but also when it comes to risk management and quality. You need to listen to the ground, and they have to give you feedback. And the second one is that you build a risk management in BCM, that's part of it, security the same, health and safety the same, and that you address and identify the vulnerabilities together with the business. That's very important. Of course, we both can do something and then think that's the outcome, but you need the feedback, and I think also Mr. Funke mentioned that you need to have to interact with all departments and functions and services. And then, of course, you prepare for the remaining risks, and that's also where this threat radar can help, and your risk assessment. I mean, our risk register has probably 300 risks. Can you deal with everything? No, probably 20, 30, 50, and that's already a lot, because thinking strategically about the presentation here, the high risk and the most impacted ones, of course, you have to think about a business continuity plan, or at least a response plan. Not every risk requires a full BCP, a business continuity plan. And then maintaining, that's probably the highest task and also the most challenging task. Writing a plan or writing a risk register is one thing, but keep it up to date with the document owners, because they may also change. And also the availability of the document. And this is then part of the response. So once you have your risk management and security management and also BCM set up, then you're able to respond. Yeah, and the lessons learned, there we had a lot. I mean, we started with our business continuity program in 2012, so far before COVID, etc. But we had already lessons learned with the typhoons, hurricanes, and of course also SARS, for instance. So the countries and the regions already came up with their plans, and we could build a global program around it. Yeah. And then corporate, of course, on top of it gives the framework. I think that's very important that everyone has a similar approach. I'm not talking about the same, because we have different business models. But we need to have a common scope and framework. This is also part of any quality management, and we have also external audits, for instance, with the ISO accredited auditors. With the policy and scope, you get immediately a major non-conformity. There's no discussion. If you can't explain the auditor what's going on or what you want to put in scope, you're immediately lost. It's a full fail. Yeah.
Yeah, just to add, in that case, we test and train regularly on that. So on corporate level with our crisis management team, but also then including the business units, or also having tests available on regional level to make sure that we are prepared for different scenarios, saying we want to highlight each and every time a different scenario just to make the variation. But of course, if you think about a scenario, it would not even be happening as you would expect. So it is more like train the structures and the processes and be prepared for that.
Yeah, BCM in practice, at least in documentation. And we come to a few study cases later on. So you can read the slides, I talk a bit around it, same as Annabel does. On the left, you see the corporate structure. Of course, that means a group management, senior management, incident management, response, and all the divisions, of course, then with their representatives. And I would be one of the DGFF ones over there, that we are represented in one work team as needed. Of course, not every case needs an escalation, but of course the bigger ones, or a case may also develop. Thinking about, for instance, the ash cloud a couple of years ago, it started somewhere in Iceland, and then suddenly in 2-3 days later, Europe was crying and shouting. Same as the other regions, because we are working in a network. That's one. So nevertheless, every division has the task to come up with interpretation of their framework, what we got from corporate. That's the BCM work. And then we have a common statement, which is also for public, so for customers and external interested parties, where we write down why we are doing it, to what extent, and also what we see as an opportunity there. I mean, a threat can be also a chance. Better having a bad test than no test in business continuity. And so we have a 10 steps approach. That's in line with the ISO standard. I can also put my colleague afraid here, because that's why we have this slash over there with DGFF. And we have one policy, we have one framework, but of course they adopt it to their business needs. Important, I think, is step 4 and 5. That's about 60 to 80% of the work. That means a risk assessment and the business impact analysis. You must know your organization. You must sit together with them. And important is in business continuity, same as in quality, you have to document it. So even if you see something is not applicable or not relevant, which might happen, heat wave in Iceland, for instance, I don't know, might not be applicable, but you need to give an explanation why you don't see it as a threat or a risk. And thinking about Bonn, where we both are based, we also have to think about earthquakes, Lake Maria Laach. So that's all written down, and of course this is then also where we get audited internally against, and of course people also must work on a need to know basis, and that's also then the number 9 and 10, exercising and maintaining documentation. And I think it was also mentioned previously here, training is the very important thing, and we come to the next slide. Continuous improvement cycle, if you want to improve it, interpret it that way. I just wanted to give you an example for legal compliance. We had an auditor a couple of years ago for an ISO audit in Turkey, and we failed. Can happen. Yeah. The reason was every quality management requires a risk register and legal register, which we did have. But there was a change in legislation in the tax, value-added tax legislation. And believe it or not, and we checked it, and he was right, there was a business continuity section in it, which we, of course, didn't cover. So that was the reason then, and that's then the issue. And since we have a global program, then everybody, every country needs to turn that cycle and have to go under continuous improvement. So that's then also the challenge in a big organization, that you have to keep then the update. And for that, we have a business continuity management committee and a security committee, where we update each other, and the rest you can talk because.
No, this is not only corporate, but it is more like how to bring it to life. So we have to make sure how we really live this resilient organization. And first of all, we have to train our people. So we have a lot of security experts worldwide and in the division. So we have to make sure that we inform them about changes and also train them respectively. And over the last, I think also five years, we had a so-called resiliency program where we also continuously came up with new information which should be included in business continuity plans. For example, all the parts of IT systems, which could be also the root cause for another upcoming crisis. They had to be included in the BCPs, and we aligned on group level together with the business units how we can integrate it in all our business continuity plans, the section of IT system failure and possible IT infrastructure outage. This was one part we focused on over the last years. Of course, there are all the other parts as well you are quite familiar with, but this was one of we were focusing on. And now Sven will highlight how this comes into play with the DGF program.
I think some were already covered. So important is that we have a global security and operational resilience team. In some key countries, we do have dedicated BCM people, dedicated security people. Most of them, it's a shared role. And of course, in the smaller countries, we have a network of so-called nominees which are supporting us. What is important, and that was also with supplier management previously, of course, we also have to act with our suppliers. And for us in DGFF, it's mainly the air carriers, the ocean carriers, but also authorities and ground handlers, because they might operate on the behalf of a corporate syndicate of the country. So that's what is our link. And also when it comes to investigation, to post-mortem events, that we get a grip and a contact to the partners. On the left, the white column, that's what I talked about. So the quality policy gives us the overall framework, not only for our division, but also then relates to the other ISO standards. Security is a bit different because we have also TAPA as an industry standard, probably known for the trucking services, but also for the facilities. And of course also GXP when it comes to the pharmaceuticals. So that's all in there. And then of course there are minimum standards which we are adhered to and also audited against. You see also the global audit program in the slide over there. And nevertheless, I think we are proud we were we were the first forwarder in 2013 with the first certification starting in the Americas, because they were the volunteers. And based on that, we built around our program. And I think we have some examples, which is valid all the time. And as you see also on the top, you see this 4 supply chain quarters there. That means when we do something, be it an investigation, be it an audit, be it also in risk management, we have to do it end to end in the supply chain. That's called door-to-door business, what we also offer. Next.
Yeah, I think looking at the time, we're maybe just using one of these examples, but we wanted to come up with an example about invoking a business continuity plan from DGF side, also bringing into perspective of corporate side. As I said before, not each and every event would also mean a crisis scenario for the group, and therefore Sven came up with the example of the hurricane.
Yeah, you can also use now the winter storm over there. For some regions in the US and let's say the Caribbean area, this is a kind of national sport. They are used to it, and that's actually also what we then take over as best practices. The same you can also replicate, of course, with Asia, with the typhoons, tsunamis, etc. But of course, important is that you have the people on the ground, that you have this incident management team. You need decision makers and deputies, talking about availability and authority. And of course also that they talk to each other. 90% in crisis or even business continuity management is communication. That's a fact. Also when it comes to bad news, you need to keep people informed. The worst thing is when you create panic or rumors, then the incident is gone. Yeah. And that's why we then also have the next step, that's the regional IMT, which would be then the regional setup, that they are at least informed and involved and get made aware and may also overrule decisions, because you may not have the full picture in a station, as we would have on the bottom there, Miami, that's our gateway to Latin America. But also then inform the other regions, because there is an impact. I mean, if one region is coughing, then the other may get already a pneumonia, because you have no inbound, outbound anymore. And then, of course, the alignment. Communication is key. Everybody needs to say the same level of information on a need-to-know basis. It means also that you copy in people, that you keep them aligned, that you come up with press releases or company statements, etc. And then, of course, also that the local response is done. And also that they think about coming up with improvements. We have one of the gateways for life sciences in Puerto Rico, which is part of this hurricane area, and they think even backups of backups when it comes to power, etc., because, as you know, Puerto Rico was hit a few times badly. We managed to be operative there with the critical activities. I'm not saying 100%, because that's part of your crisis management, that you define service levels and the also percentages or amounts of work you can do. So that's then the opportunity, and of course also sharing lessons learned. That's the key. Yeah, and I think the next one. Do we have
maybe just to add here, what are we going to do on corporate level with these kind of events? It's more like that we're assessing how is our footprint there. So we don't really have only DGF there. We could also have express and supply chain there. So we have to make sure that we inform our management about how many employees would be affected, how many business units are present there, what is the overall situation there. So to make a decision, but also if the triggers are met. So how is the severity of the event? How is the severity of the infrastructure failure? How can we operate? And this is what we bring together as an overview for our level. And I think we will skip the other one, or do you want to allude to that?
Up to the moderator. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The next one, yeah, I don't read the title, but it's still ongoing, obviously. That was, of course, where we also had plans in place for pandemic, but not for that level. At that time, we called it epidemic, and then you also had to convince all regions. I mean, if you go, and this is, don't get me wrong, please. If you go to an African country and tell them about a new disease, they said, yeah, listen, we have already 10, so for us it's just another one. But of course you have to include them in the planning. You have to make them aware, and they get it, no issues. They are fully cooperative. And of course then you have one understanding. And of course this was a special case because it started as a crisis management, was locally. And then, of course, it developed. The region was crying, so it was brought up to our global level quite immediately. We were talking about January. And then all of a sudden in February, it was even on the top global level because all regions were paralyzed, and also we as division couldn't cope with that anymore because simply of the scope and the extent. And then, of course, also authority decisions came in, etc. Then your plan is more or less obsolete anymore. What was the good thing is, I think, the lessons learned. We have this divisional strategy. We have the work teams also for others. I think Ukraine, Russia was mentioned, same as Middle East, that we are in contact, that we talk to each other, and of course that we're all on the same level of understanding. And here with the COVID, of course, that goes on till the day for the pandemic blending, that you have a lot of lessons learned, and also that you never should forget your third parties, be it in-house or key suppliers, which is part of the business impact analysis, that you regularly review your suppliers and keep them up to date, respectively also check what they are critically doing for you. All right?
Yeah, I think that's from us. So looking forward for the roundtable and the discussions, and hope, you enjoyed our presentation, and have a great day.
Thank you all.